Test, test, test. That's freaking hilarious. I wonder if I'm going to be looking down there. Hmm. No. This is absolutely hilarious. I'm overstimulated. I wonder if I could just. No. I wonder. I wonder. Yeah. Yeah. That would be hilarious. I could do that. Okay. Check, check, check. Okay. That works. Definitely tell the story about Jason JMac. McElwain? Okay. And lots of recording. Lots of recording. Lots of recording. I wonder if. Oh, come on. Seriously? Like a mobile hub. Okay. So get out of there. All right. I'm like overstimulating myself, and it's hilarious. overstimulating myself. Shocker. Coach Jim Johnson got leadership. Inspirational leadership. You can check him out at www.coachjimjohnson.com. Think bigger, lead better, win more. You can get him at Twitter at Coach Jim Johnson. Also follow up on LinkedIn and Facebook. Find all the audio on February 15th, 2006 to let this autistic manager into a basketball game. It's called The Miracle Night. This is going to be hilarious if this works. He's in a Zoom meeting. I think not too much. Check, checky, checky, check. Hmm. Well, if this works, this might be the time to do. Taking notes. I'm gonna go live. Instagram. You get to see me stress. It's gonna be interesting. This is my mobile hotspot. Zoom meeting with Jim Johnson. So get to see me behind the scenes. So it'll be interesting. Yeah. Now you can see me behind the scenes of behind the scenes. Welcome to my mobile hotspot. Working out of the car tonight. So we'll see what happens. Having a Zoom meeting with Jim Johnson. My laptop's right here. Microphone's right here. Notebook's right there. It's going to be a shit show. But I'm going to have fun doing it. Hopefully Coach will get here before we know it. And hopefully my internet holds up. This is going to be hilarious. Test, 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 test one, test two, testicle one, testicle two. I don't know where Mr. Johnson is. Stressors. It doesn't look like anybody's looking at me on Instagram or anything just yet. I know my signal isn't the greatest here, so I might have to move. Let's see if it shows up at 6. Well, it says I got 3 bars. Mitch. Hey, buddy. Yeah, this is the shit storm before the storm. I wonder if people can chat with me. You're too far away for me to chat with you, but hopefully Mitch is doing okay. Huh. No. Mitch, can you chat? Maybe even hear me? I don't know. Trying this Lola thing out, just not working. But Mitch, I see you're joining me, and I appreciate you being here, buddy. Hopefully my internet connection is stable. I wonder if this is one of the guys that's like, he shows up right at 6. Nope. Quit. Don't make sure all my stuff is shut down except for Zoom. Okay. It starts in 3 minutes. Talk about dead air. I have to go back and butcher this. It's gonna be funny when soccer parents come flying by. And if I remember on the Lola or Lula, waiting for my buddy to show. Waiting for my buddy to show. Oh, let's see it recorded. Starts in 1 minute. Come on, Jim. Where you at, buddy? I don't think my internet is stable enough. But at least Mitch gets to see me squabble. Aha! Yes. Coach. Did it work?
Wow.
How are you, sir?
So we got the car service here, huh?
Yeah, well, got my kid to soccer, and I'm in the the parking lot doing my show. So I was like, dedication for you right there. But
yeah, I love it. I love it. You know,
so,
it's the flexibility of the world these days, right?
I guess that's the crazy thing of this whole,
Yeah.
kit and caboodle. But can you hear me okay? I can hear you okay.
I can. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I just want to let you know I'm trying out this thing it's called Lula TV. And so it's another stream. If I could share it with you, there's actually another tablet over here to the side streaming me from the other side. So it's kind of like they get a perspective of what I'm doing. So this stuff's going to go on Instagram and Twitter and Twitch and whatever. And I think it's hilarious. I'm just trying another platform. And like I said, I'm going to overstimulate my phone and see what we can do. But how's your day been?
Good. Yeah, actually, we had a really nice as far as weather day. So, which at this time of the year we start to get to the point where the nights are getting a lot colder. But today was actually about 70 degrees, and so I got to play some tennis this morning, so that was good. And,
cool.
Yeah. So, how about you?
I got my run in this morning. It was funny.
Are you a pretty avid runner?
Yeah, I'm training for a couple of things. I got a couple of races I'd like to do, but the ultimate is the triathlon is what I'd like to get to. So,
I've
never been dubbed as you are an Ironman, but that's kind of the goal that I'm looking for. But so yeah, ever since I actually stepped down as an AD, I really started just working more towards my health and running more and eating right and drinking less and just focusing on my spirituality, and here we are. So
I was a runner younger. I've become a very avid tennis player, so I don't do a lot of running more. But I am an exercise guy. I admire people that have done triathlons because I'm an absolute terrible swimmer. So because of that, I've never been even tempted to do. I mean, I've run some road races. I've never actually, I like the bike, but I've never really done a bike race either. But
Yeah.
the pool, the water, and me, I'll jump in to cool off, but that's about it.
Yeah. Well, to let you know, I've had my death experience in the water when I was young. So for me, even to get near the water is like, so I'm in the same thing. I love running. I love I've done a couple mountain bike races, but that was like when I was in high school, and
Okay.
so not a swimmer. But from what I've heard, that you can just make up for it on the road or make up for it on
Right.
the
Right.
run. So
Yeah.
we'll see. So.
Good.
So yeah, let me just lay this out for you. It's
Sure.
going to be, did you get my questions and stuff?
I did. Yep. I'm all set. And
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
Yep.
So yeah, basically what I'd like to do is just kind of just everything's going to be segmented. Don't worry about long pauses and everything because I'll go through and kind of edit things and so basically I just kind of want to go through my list and make sure everything's correct and just get a little bit more information about you and then we'll head into the questions and then show will air on Wednesday and we'll kind of go from there. But
Okay. Yeah. Let me know, what you put it on, and I'll help try to promote it. The only question I have, and then, I'm all ready to go, is because right now it's obviously night here. How is my lighting? Am I okay?
yeah, you're fine. So
Okay.
that's the other thing. I've only used the audio for my
Okay.
podcast. But
Okay.
if you would like the video, I can totally send it to you so you could reuse it if you'd like.
Yeah.
Um,
If you don't mind, that'd be great. Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely.
See, and that's the thing. Like I thought about, uploading it to my YouTube because I'm trying to, like I said, I'm tinkering on too many things and too many irons in the fire.
Right.
But I'm trying to just make it simple. But yeah, I just do the Zoom because it's the easiest way for recording
Right.
and it just makes it flexible. So, but yeah, I'll and that's the other thing. I'm going to be kind of writing down notes as we go. So I'm going to write that down really quick. I will
Okay. Absolutely.
email the video to you so then you can kind of butcher it and do whatever you need. But
Okay.
so, so just to kind of get everything right, the website, www.coachjimjohnson.com.
Correct.
That's where people can get at you if they want to do any kind of keynote speaking.
Right.
I know that's what one of the things you're really trying to promote, and I want to help you promote with that. I love the think bigger, lead better, and win more. So,
Right.
could you kind of tell me a little bit more about when you became a motivational and kind of a keynote speaker, or
Well, yeah. I started, when I started to really start to study, on personal growth, I was curious because, I started to follow, speakers and stuff, but I never, I was trying to figure out how to, get involved. And I did some speaking in the basketball world, like at clinics and stuff. But actually the JMac story, just completely opened doors for me. And, early on, I had no idea what I was doing, but then I started to get a little bit more comfortable with it. And actually ironically, I was speaking at an event probably about 12 to 18 months after the JMac game. So it was 2007, 2008 in that range. And this guy, I was speaking at an event in Chicago, and this guy comes out of the audience after, he says, I'm a speaker coach. That's what I do for a living. And he goes, you got potential to be a really good speaker. And I said, oh, thank you. And he says, you should join the National Speakers Association. And it was funny, Mike, because at that point I was absolutely clueless about speaking, other than the fact that I started to like it. And, I like to try to make an impact on people. And I looked at him like he had two heads. I said, what is the National Speakers Association? He said, oh, that's a association for all the speakers all over the country, and actually it's a global. And so I actually investigated and I joined it the year after. And I've gone, they have a few conferences, but their big conference they call Influence in the summer. And the first one I went to, ironically, was in New York City, which I'm in upstate New York, so I'm about 6 hours away. So I flew, and I was in awe. I met all these great speakers. And so I've actually gone, this year they did a virtual because of the pandemic, but I had gone 10 years in a row. And that really helped me because I literally learned a lot about the industry. In fact, I do a couple different, mastermind calls every month with speakers. And And so that really, in fact, the ironic thing is the lady I work with, my speaking manager, I met at, I think, the third conference I went to, and we've been working together ever since. So it's that really helped educate me, and now I feel like I know a lot about not only speaking but the business aspect of it as well. So
Cool. Is that something that anybody can kind of just join in, promote, kind of get involved, or is there a website for that? Or
yeah, it's actually nsa.org, I believe, is the website. And they do have some qualifications, but people can go even if they're just starting out. You can go like as a non-member, and then as you start to get some. The other thing they do, like in my area in upstate New York, we don't have, but they have what they call chapters around the country,
okay,
which are like branches. And I'm not sure if there'd be one close to you or not, but they have them all over the place, and a lot of people are really involved. And that's one of the other ways that people get involved with speaking is they'll join the local chapter, and then they'll end up going to some of the NSA events as well.
cool. No, that's something I'll definitely check out, and I'll probably slide that into the resources or whatnot. But
Yeah,
your Twitter at Coach Jim Johnson. You're
yeah,
also on LinkedIn and Facebook.
correct.
So
I
that,
actually just started Instagram, although I'm still clueless on how I'm sort of best going to use it. But I figured I'm trying to, I know the young people, that's their baby right now. I'm doing a little bit with it, but I'm still haven't figured it out yet. So,
yeah, no, I've found that just for Instagram, like the phone is the best thing. Like you get it on the laptop or the PC or whatever, it's like it doesn't really do anything. So,
right,
but so yeah, could you? All right, so kind of getting into the meat and potatoes about about who you are and your claim to fame, the Miracle Night
right,
in February 15th, 2006. I'm
yeah,
gonna get that clip. Uh, Out of that, watching that video, if that doesn't motivate anybody, I don't think you have a pulse, or you're not alive, or you don't have any emotions or whatever. But can
right,
you? I mean, I know you probably talk a lot about this, but every time I see that, it is just monumental to really just capture a young autistic man, coming off the bench, cold,
right,
hadn't done anything, right? And
right,
he's autistic. And I mean, if people could just understand the autistic world, like they don't want to have any sensory overload.
right.
They don't want to be touched, and so could you just kind of elaborate you know, you're calling JMac in. I mean, and take it from
Right.
there. What do you think?
Well, I got to give you just a very quick background in the sense that, he came into our program as a sophomore, and I was the varsity coach. He tried out for our junior varsity, and I got to give our JV coach a lot. He really saw this young man that had no basketball talent, but he had this big heart, and he offered him the team manager's job for the JVs. But then he started to grow on me too, because he would stay, he'd go to all the JV practices, and he'd go on the bench for the JV games. And then he would go to, he'd stay on the bench for the varsity games. And at that point in my career, I think I've been at the school for 9 or 10 years. So we had a really good culture, and it was neat because early on the kids, because I didn't, this was back in 2003, 4 is when he entered our program, and I didn't know much about autism. It was just starting to become a little bit more prevalent, and so I learned a lot from Jason. And one of the things I admired about him, just before I get into the game, was that he was the only student that I ever had that tried out for our team for 3 consecutive years, not making it.
Oh, wow.
Usually I probably had maybe a handful, 4 or 5 kids even, that if they got cut one year would even try out the next year, right? And
Hmm.
he did it 3 straight years. And not only did he try out, but he came to like all our off-season training. He really was committed to wanting to make the team. And so that's what I really admired, just his perseverance. And then the other thing that, in his autism, some of it he struggled with in the sense that he didn't get if you didn't put the team first. like he was, as much as he, he's far from a perfect person like anybody else. I mean, he's got an ego like everybody else, but he really struggled if you didn't put the team first. And that was his whole thing, is because ironically, is that I had been a fairly successful coach from a win-loss standpoint, but we had never won our sectional championship, which is a pretty big deal in our area. And that was like his whole dream, was to help us win this first one. Well, the ironic thing, so his senior year, we were supposed to have a really good team, and I thought we were going to have a great team. And he tried out for the team, and he didn't make it. But I told him that for a gift, I was going to give him a uniform for senior night so we could honor him in uniform. And I didn't promise that I was going to play him the game, but I told him that he could. And I used to, I've kidded in my presentations that he periodically would ask me about that uniform. And of course, I define periodically as about every other day. Well, the interesting thing about that season was that we started off well. We won. We played in a tip-off tournament. We won the tournament, and I thought hunky-dory. Well, we had, talk about diversity. I grew up in the community. It was called Greece, New York. It's the biggest suburb of Rochester. And when I grew up, it was predominantly white. And as I coached there, we got more and more minorities between, African Americans, Asians, Hispanic. And so, my teams changed drastically from when early in my career, it was pretty much Caucasian. And by the end of my career, half my team was minorities. Oh. And so I actually had a minority assistant coach that he had two sons on the team. His oldest son was a senior that was the same year as Jason, and he was probably our best player. And then I brought up his younger son, who was a sophomore, that was a good player, but people didn't like him as much. The older son was a peach. Yeah. The younger son was a very good player, but he wasn't a peach. And so the parents kind of thought that this assistant was, influencing me, which he wasn't. And it ended up being, it was almost like an anarchy. And with the parents, and we ended up going through a really terrible time, and it really divided the team. And I mean, I nearly resigned because I wanted to be, loyal to this parent that had been, he wasn't just an assistant that year. He had been with me for 6 years. Oh, so wow. It wasn't like, so we ended up making this compromise that the assistant didn't like, and I didn't really like either. But my assistants and my wife said, you always talk about when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Now you got to step up. And so that was the interesting thing. Is I've said this a few times. That season was the ultimate in what happened from a positive standpoint, but it was the most challenging season I ever had as far as a team being divided. And the whole season I was spending really, and it really enhanced my leadership because I ended up, by the end of the season, we were pretty together. Right. So going into the senior night, we had finally gotten things going. We had like a 7 or 8 game winning streak, and we were going into senior night. And, it touched my heart deeply to see him embrace his parents in uniform before the game. And then, we had a neat student body following that year. And, during the game, they would chant, "We want JMac," I guess, just to remind me. And so my whole concept is I wanted to get him in with enough time so he could score a basket. So, and the other thing is I thought to myself, if I can get him in, in the fourth quarter, I just would like to let him finish the game. I think that'd be really cool for him. So I decided with just over 4 minutes to go that I, to put him in. And what touched my heart dearly was what I didn't know was one of our parents had made all these pictures, these placards of this face, and he put them on paint sticks. And I had no idea. And, usually I'm a pretty macho guy in the sidelines, and he enters the game, and we had a pretty good student body following, it's on the video, and they start showing all these placards, and Mr. Macho, me, I get so overwhelmed with emotion. I sit down and tears start literally running down my face. I just can't believe how he's, being embraced as he comes in the game. And then I'll take you through just a few of the quick things about the game. So he's finally in the game. He gets the ball the first time, and he's got in the right corner, and he lets a 3-pointer go, and kind of everybody stands, in anticipation, and he misses by like 6 feet. And and I kid people that, I know I wasn't supposed to pray in the public schools, but I was praying, dear God, please help me get one basket. But the thing that was so cool, it was a great lesson, because one of the traits I always talk about Jason is his perseverance, the ability, and we always used to talk about next play. You got to learn from mistakes, but you got to move on. And Jason was exemplified that to the max, because he just shrugged it off like it. Because I think a lot of kids, remember, that's the first game he's ever played in on the varsity level, right?
Oh, wow.
And a lot of kids, I think, would have said, hey, I'm not shooting again. This is embarrassing, right?
Yep.
He just shrugged it off. So the next possession, he has a much shorter shot from about 10 feet. And this time it actually hits the backboard, hits the rim, and falls off. And I'm thinking, all right, God's starting to listen. We're getting closer. And then his third shot is another 3-pointer, this time from the right wing. He lets it go, and magic, it goes in, and the place just explodes. And I thought to myself, God must be a basketball fan. Not only has he scored, he's got a 3-pointer. It can't get any better than this, right? Well, then he makes his next shots, another 3. Then he makes another shot, and his foot is on the line. Otherwise, he would, and so just to give you a perspective, and then I'll share the end of the game, is people said, did they let him shoot? And I said, they weren't all over him, but it wasn't like they just gave him. Plus the fact that he made 6 3-pointers, and his 7th basket, his foot was on the line. People just don't do that. And he literally did that in 3 minutes. But the interesting thing is, one of the shots, which you don't see on any videos, he misses a 3, and it's a long rebound, and one of his teammates grabs it, and he turns and just flips it to Jason. It's the only time the other team just let him go. He walks in, he's got a wide open layup, and he misses it. So that gives you a perspective. Here's a kid that in the last 3 minutes makes 6, almost 7 threes, and he misses a wide open layup. The only time they let him go. And so that was just a wild thing that I don't share too often, but I think just to give everybody a perspective of what happened. So the 2 things I'll never forget, though, with a minute to go, at this point, I have no idea how many baskets he made. I'm just, I'm still, tears are just flowing down my face. And I'm sitting on the bench, and I get a tap on my shoulder, and I look behind me, and it's Jason's mother. And she is just crying her eyes out. And she whispers in my ear, Coach, this is the best gift you could ever give my son. And of course, I'm so touched, I cry harder. And then literally how the game ends is like out of a Hollywood movie. So Spencer Porter, our opponent that night, I do want to give kudos to their coach and their players, because I approached them, their coach, and we played them early in the season, and they were great sports. But they score with about 10 seconds to go, and our player takes it out, and he normally throws it right to our point guard. Well, this time he throws it to JMac. So JMac had never touched the ball in the backcourt. He literally, in fact, I've kidded him still to this day, because he would run down, and his teammates would just pass him the ball, and he'd shoot. In fact, I always kid him that, Jason, I'm still looking for your first assist. You never passed the ball once. And I'll come back to that point in just a second, but literally, the last possession, he's dribbling down, you see the clock ticking down, and all of a sudden, with about 2 seconds to go, I thought he would just try to go in and shoot a short shot. He pulls up like 2 feet behind the arc, almost an NBA 3. And I'm thinking to myself, Jason, don't shoot for that. It's way too far. He launches his rainbow, and it's swish. I look over, our student body rushes on the court. Our players were on the floor. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm living the movie Rudy. This is incredible. And then I'll never forget, because our players put him up on their shoulders. And at this point, I have no idea how many points he scored. And our public address announcer comes on and says, the leading scorer for the Trojans, our team nickname, JMac, with 20 points. And I started thinking, oh my gosh, he played the whole game and scored 160 points. I mean, that would have been like 40 points a quarter, because he scored 20 and a half a quarter. And then it was just, I mean, everybody was like in shock, and it was just awesome. But the other thing that was so cool, because I had to give you a little of the background of the season, because our team had really struggled from a strife situation, was that how the kids embraced him that night. because I never asked any of the kids to pass the ball, yet out of their own hearts, they decided, they were going to pass the ball every time, which was so cool. And because one of the things I talk about is teamwork. And to me, that was the essence, is when you can shine the light on somebody else on your team, that's really special. And then just to close the season, I'll share two things. One is I really felt I did it for all the right reasons. We had no media there. In fact, I think it's been kind of cool because I think there's been a ripple effect. You've seen some pretty neat stories, but it's set up, where they have cameras and, sometimes they have TV stations there, and it's all cool. I'm not, I'm glad there was a ripple effect, but there was no media there. The only thing I did is back then we had to call in the newspaper to call the box score in. And I thought they would make a big deal. They didn't. And the next day I'm at school, and there was a buzz around school. And so I was a phys ed teacher at the time there, and I didn't teach all day. We just watched the video all day. And kids were coming up and they're going, "Coach, this is good again at ESPN." I said, "ESPN?" And we get a headline in our Democratic Chronicle, our newspaper, right? And what I didn't know is Jason's speech pathologist, he had never come to a game, but he worked with Jason for 4 years, and Jason told him he might get in. So he comes in. He was so touched that he called one of our local TV stations on his own, and they came in, borrowed the video. It was a VHS tape back then, and they show it on TV, and then, Mike, it explodes. The next day we had 3 local TV stations. By Monday, CBS Evening News was calling. The following week, ESPN does a story that, there's a video that's been hit, hundreds of times, thousands of times now. And it just goes crazy. And of course, now we're trying to prepare for this sectional tournament that we had never won. In fact, I had gotten, as a coach, to the sectional semifinals 6 times in my career, never made the finals. So we get a bye in the first round, and then we win the quarterfinal game pretty easily. And you talk about leadership. The one thing that I learned that I knew I had to do better is I had to keep my cool, because one of the things I talk about is leading by example. And I realized that I was putting so much pressure on myself to, help us win this championship, that I was actually struggling with, keeping my control, keeping control. When we have pressure situations, which you're going to get in a sectional tournament. So we get to the semifinals, and this time we have a 10-point lead at halftime, which, it's like, oh my God, we're finally going to do this. We blow the entire lead. We're actually losing in the fourth quarter. But I changed. I was actually much better. I kept control. I was positive. And the troops came together, and we actually came back and won the game. And then in the championship game, we have a downtown arena that seats about 10 or 11,000, but basketball is not huge in our area. So for a championship game, because they'll play the different classes all day long. So we were the second last game. So I think we were like 7:00 at night. We walk in the arena, and because the JMac story had gotten so big, the place is sold out. We have 11,000 people there. I mean, it's just crazy. And, and so we're getting in. And the funny part is JMac had developed this mantra called stay focused his 2 years when he helped the varsity, because he wanted so badly to win a sectional championship. So I'll never forget this. We walk in the arena that night, and Channel 8, one of our TV stations, says, "Coach, can we interview you before the game?" I said, "Sure." So they asked me a few questions. They said, "Can we interview JMac?" I said, "Sure." So he's actually sitting in the first row. I'm down on the floor. And I turned, I said, "Jason, Channel 8 wants to interview you." He stands up, I kid you not, and he goes, "Coach, it's time to get focused. No media interviews." So I'm like, all right, we must be ready. How about the first championship game I ever coached? We're down 13-4 after first 4 minutes. And I'm like, oh my gosh. But as I said, I did a much better job of keeping my cool. We actually rallied. Had a tie game in the last minute, and one of our players dribbled in, and he threw it out to another guard. And ironically, the kid's name was Steve Kerr. Not the Steve Kerr is the Golden State Warriors coach, but he makes a 3, and our opponent comes down, misses a shot, and we end up winning the Section 5 championship for the first time. And then the last part I want to share, you remember I told all this, or the students said we're going to get ISBN. Well, it became such a big story that actually ESPN was at our championship game and actually showed highlights of our game on ESPN Sports Center. And so we actually, after that game, went to a local restaurant and we actually saw highlights of our game on ESPN. It was crazy. So, and then we ended the state tournament, we ended up losing, but ended up being, and I ended up writing a book about it called The Coach in a Miracle, which was truly crazy. So.
Well, thanks for sharing with that. And so, the thing I took away from it was a couple of things. I mean, the intimacy, I could tell that just watching the video, and I love the VHS reference because, the quality wasn't the greatest, but
Right.
but every shot that Jason shot was like, it was all net, man. It was amazing to
Yeah.
see. And so,
Yeah.
but just the intimacy, like you said, like the culture, the students, everybody's involvement was just, it looked like it was kind of like, I don't want to say it was like staged, but it looked totally like that was what your culture is. Like that was
Yeah.
every night. And I mean,
Right.
that's the thing, like the consistency of it was just like, this is surreal. And
Yeah.
I guess the last kind of touching part of it all, seeing Stuart Scott, commentate that. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I was already choked up as is. And then I saw that, I was like, I mean, it was just a full circle again of what one does for another and just paying it forward. It was just such a beautiful story. I appreciate you sharing that because it's especially in the time that we are in like right now and how everybody's just cooped up and we're all just at each other's wits and we want to get back to normalcy. Like
Right.
reflecting on these wonderful stories and how to help others become better through personal growth is what we need to hear. And so
Right.
that
Hey,
brings.
so Mike, let me add one last thing, and then you certainly answer any questions you got. But is the funny other thing is Jason's idol was Kobe Bryant,
Oh
and
man.
the crazy thing is, obviously the late Kobe Bryant now, but that year Kobe scored 81 points in a NBA game. And Jason actually was up for an ESPY for the greatest sports moment of the year, and one of the other four finalists was Kobe,
Kobe.
and he actually beat Kobe out for the ESPY. So, so it was crazy.
Oh man. So do you still talk to Jason every now and then? I mean, what's he
Yeah,
doing?
the neat thing is after that year he graduated. He had an IEP diploma, so he didn't go to college. He actually started working at a grocery chain that's actually gotten fairly big in the East Coast called Wegmans,
Mm-hmm.
and he actually worked there. He still does part time. But after 2 years out of our program, he actually came back and we met one day, and he was coming to some of our games. I was seeing him, but he goes, Coach, I really missed the program. Can I come back and get involved? And I said, sure. So he was kind of like a volunteer assistant for my last 9 years. I was literally, seeing him almost every single day because he would come to our practices, he'd come to all our games, and that was cool because we had a good relationship in high school, but it grew even bigger. Where when we were doing events together, we go speak together, but it was just neat because people would say we'd go to, or I'd go to an event where he wasn't with me, and they say, do you ever see Jason? I said, well, almost every single day. And when I travel, he texts me like 12 times a day. So in fact, I always have kidded people, like when we've done events out of town, Jason's interesting because there's some things he's very obvious that he's on the autism spectrum, but one of the things is he's pretty good at talking to people, because some people with autism don't want anything to do with people, but Jason's a little bit different there, where he will warm up to people, but he'll get to the point where he'll be bold and say, hey, do you want to exchange cell phone numbers? And I'll start laughing because if they do, I'll say, you don't know what you're getting yourself into because you will
Prepare
get a
yourself for
lot of
12
texts
texts a
over the
day,
time.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Uh,
that's awesome because I like you said, even in the interview and your segment, I mean, to me, he's just a normal kid, and that's
yeah.
just the cool of it. And he's I don't know, down to earth kid. And so, you know, spinning off that, your support for autism, can you kind of tell us a little bit about that and what you've done?
Yeah, I've been working not as closely as I'd like to right now, but there's an organization locally called Autism Up. Something I haven't done I would like to get a little bit, I would love to someday be a kind of a spokesperson, I've never been able to connect with the right people. So that's kind of a dream that I still, try to keep alive. But I do help a local autism group, and Jason and we've done a fundraiser for them and done some various things for them over the years. It's called Autism Up, which is from Rochester. It was actually a group of mothers that all had a son or daughter that was on the spectrum that developed this, and so they're a really neat organization, and we've done some work with them, and actually for the 10-year anniversary we had this big dinner, and we actually brought Roy Firestone in to speak at the dinner, and or it was actually a luncheon, but we raised I think like $25,000 for him, so it was pretty cool. So
Nice, nice. No, and that's just the thing. Working in the special education, I'm kind of making my transition from, going from PE guy, did the athletic director for a couple of years, and then
right,
that didn't fit my life and my family, and
right.
so during COVID, I was like, man, I want to get into special education, and I've had autistic kids and just never really thought much about it. And I've had, all series and types of students with, disabilities. And that's just kind of where my passion's kind of gone. And
Oh,
that
good
really
for you.
it's really intrigued me to kind of motivate
Mhm.
more and understand more. Not only that, but like you said, just how to give back to these kids, because they deserve just like you and I. And so
Right,
those are the things that
absolutely.
I really appreciate, sharing that. So, um, all right, let's get to the seriousness here.
Okay.
So that way I can, I guess maybe watch a little bit of my kids' soccer, but whatever. um, so take us through the steps of making a creative or creating a personal mission statement. I mean, what's the foundations for creating your personal mission statement?
Well, I'll tell you, because I got a head varsity job at 25 years old, which is pretty young. And I thought I've been an assistant for only 3 years, and I had done some, been pretty successful in those 3 years. And I thought I had everything under control. And I led that team to one win and like 18 losses. And it was a very humbling experience. And then they actually let me go, and because I was an interim, 1 year position, and the job actually opened up. They didn't give it to me, so I was really disappointed. But it really made me realize I had a lot to learn, and I got a break. I worked with a college coach for a year, and ironically, his name was Bill Van Gundy. Little did I know that both of his sons, years later, would end up being head coaches in the NBA. So that was pretty crazy. Um, but from there, I really started, and this is something I really try to talk to young people about, is anything you want to be good in, you got to make it a study. And I really, leadership is still my passion. I mean, I'm not coaching anymore, but I listen to leadership podcasts. I've read well over 1,000 books on teamwork and leadership and success. I mean, I just can't get enough, because I think everything starts and falls and goes either up or down on the leadership. And so going back to answer your question, is as I started my study, I realized the first person you got to lead is yourself, of course, and I wasn't doing too good a job of that. And one of the books that really opened my eyes, that got me thinking about who I was Dr. Covey's book, The Seven Habits, and that's when he was one of the first books where he talked about personal mission, and do you have a personal mission statement in writing? And at that point, I had no clue why I was on this earth. So to answer your question specifically, what I do is I take through either my presentations, I have workshops on it as well, is I talk about answering this question: why were you put on this earth? Or if you're a person of faith, why did God put you on this earth? And then the things that I talk about is, number one, is I think you should understand what are your top 3 or 4 values. So have clarity on that. Number two is, I think the mission statement should be evergreen, although you can change it, but I think it should be written like this is what you want to try, how you want to try to live your life. The third thing is I think it has to be clear that it has to have a part of it in helping others, that servant leadership mindset. So when I started to do that, and I can tell you, Mike, it clearly changed me as a much better leader when I gained clarity. And I share my mission statement all the time. My mission statement is to be an outstanding role model that makes a positive difference in the world by helping others make their dreams come true. And when I broke that up, what it helped me so immensely is because it helped me with my decisions. Because when I thought about, like, just give you an example, like I wanted to be a better role model. So I had a mentor challenge me and said, Jim, I know you're not a huge drinker, but you drink during the season. I want to challenge you. Don't drink alcohol during the season. So my last 23 years, I would get up in front of all my teams. We had 3 teams in a high school, and all their parents. We had a parents players meeting, and I would tell them I would not drink during the season. And and then so I was building credibility there because that's something I didn't have to do, but it was part of my mission. And then I always was trying to think of, how can I help these young people make their dreams come true? And when I had clarity, and I was far from, perfect. I mean, I made still my share of mistakes, but when I really had that clear baseline of, what was I all about, it made me such a better leader because my players, my parents, the people around me, they knew what I stood for, and that I wasn't going to, go away from that I really wanted to live a life of integrity as a model and someone that helped others. And that really was a major change. So I highly recommend that people start to take some time, and I believe you discover your mission. So it's not something that I think you can sit down for 5 minutes and say, oh, that's my mission statement. I think you got to start to figure out, as I said, the steps would be, answering that question, why were you put on this earth, putting down your top 3 or 4 values. How can you help others? How can be something that, can live on forever, through your life. And I think those are some of the keys about that. And certainly, you can delve into it deeper, but I think just having the clarity of who you are really starts on whether you can be, a more effective leader or not.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And that's kind of takes me to my, personal, well, clear statement that I'm doing. I mean, I do a lot of the stoic stuff in the morning, and I do a lot of the quotes and getting up early, doing my creative stuff, doing my meditation, doing my prayers, and I'm trying to live that mission statement, like you said, and force of actions.
Right.
And so, but I agree with you. You can't just, you can't make it up, because you can't,
Right.
don't fluff it. But, if you can really find the time and what buys into you and what you want to give back is, one of the things I've found through this. So that's awesome. I've added, the values, and then I compound it. I kind of ripped this from James Clear, when you're
Okay.
talking about habits and
Right.
stacking them, right? So I've done the values, and then I put the principles, which put that into place. So, if my values are honesty, it goes along with accountability and like you said, the integrity, and those are action words that you, like you said, lead by example. So
Right.
awesome. So going into, taking into like even your classroom, maybe even your basketball teams, what kind of trust activities have you done or used to build trust? And I'd love to hear if there are anything like in the physical education worlds, because I'm a big PE guy too.
Right.
But is there any psychological trust activities that you've done just to kind of get kids to buy into the program?
Yeah, I think number one is that, and this is something because I do a lot of leadership presentations now, and one of my keys is building trust. And I don't think you can have a successful team if you don't build trust. So there are 3 keys that we used as a foundation in any program we took over, and in my classroom as well. Is that number one, we wanted to say what we do and do what we say. And in other words, align our words and actions, that we got to be consistent to build trust. Because I always would tell our players that I'm going to trust you until you don't. But trust is like building a bank account. And if you consistently put in deposits, that account's going to grow. But if you consistently take withdrawals out, it's going to deplete. but with one big caveat, and I ask this question often in my presentations, how many would agree that it takes time to build trust, but you can destroy it with one bad decision? I almost get always 100% hands. And so I always give an illustration is like, like I told you earlier that I told my teams and my parents that I would not drink alcohol. Well, if I said that and 2 weeks later I got a DWI, what do you think that would have done to the trust account? And of course, it would have destroyed. I would have never gotten it back with that team, maybe never gotten it back totally. So that's an example. And then I give a smaller example, like one of my non-negotiables is I used to tell my team, be on time, and if you can't be on time, be early. But if someone came in 5 minutes late, would that hurt the trust account? And the answer is yes, it would, but it's not the same as getting a DWI after saying I'm not going to drink. I mean, so is the difference on that. But at the same time, that is a way, like if you had someone that was chronically late, that's going to hurt the trust account to the point, at that one point where you're not going to get it back. So going back, so that was one align your actions and your words. Number two is we really wanted to base on telling the truth. And so in doing that, I think telling the truth is number one, being authentic, that you're willing to share the truth. And number two is being vulnerable. And being vulnerable is something I really learned during JMac's year, because I didn't have all the answers. And I would open up to them, the team, a lot and say, you know what, guys, I'm struggling right now because I love you guys and we need to be better, but I got to hear from you. So I really became a much better listener, which really helped me immensely in my last decade of coaching basketball. So I think, building that foundation of being authentic and being vulnerable and telling the truth. And then the third thing is, because I took over 4 programs that all have been losing. The first one I failed miserably, where I told you I lost the job, but the other 3 we were able to turn around. And so the one thing though that when you take over something that hasn't been good, is the third key that we always talked about is we want to try to catch people doing right, and making sure that we recognize that. And as simple as that sounds, that's something that I really think, especially when you go into a negative situation, you tend to fester that instead of saying, hey, we got to catch them doing right and praising, because you're going to get more of what you recognize, whether it's a negative thing or a positive thing. So you might as well try to recognize the positive. So those are some things that we would do. And, I talk to companies now, and I think it's hugely important that you have some intentional off campus, or in our case off, where we actually we would do in the off season, we would do some team building type activities, trying to build trust. But we would actually, when the regular season ended, often our first day of our postseason, we didn't get any basketballs out. We did a team building session, and it was immensely. And I'll give you a couple examples. We would do a team wraparound where we'd sit all in the chairs and we ask, a couple questions like, what do we need to focus on to go as far as we possibly can? How are we going to continue to build our team chemistry? Another thing we did is we did what we call a rotating line, where we would get in front of each person, and one side was the talking line and the other line was the receiving line. And we would say, we would give you 30 seconds in that you would just tell with specifics of why that person was important to be on the team. And you could just see how powerful that was. And so I guess the thing, there are so many different little activities. Like we would do team wraparounds a lot after games. What do we do well? What do we need to, work on going forward? So I think it's important that you're always getting feedback. And the other thing I think is really important is that you not only have team meetings, but you have individual meetings. And the other thing that I started to do much better JMac's year and then continue on is I call them just stand-up meetings, where you just, before practice, after practice, just talking to kids, hey, how are things going? what's going on in your family, how are things in school, how can I best support you, just building that relationship, because there's nothing more important in trust than building relationships so that they do trust you. And so I think that the close on that is, the huge thing is, as a leader, is you have to understand how important trust is, and that you must be intentional. It doesn't happen by accident, and if you're not aware of that, because if trust goes away, your team's in deep trouble.
Yeah.
So.
No, I would agree. Uh, as you were, talking about, your 30 years, which is just amazing to have that longevity as a coach and PE teacher. And I mean, just in teaching alone, education alone, and, touching back on, like you said, one little thing gives everybody a black eye, and nowadays you just can't afford it. And so,
Right.
but, it is amazing. And I can, I love doing, team building activities and trust activities, just to kind of get
Right.
kids out of their comfort zone. But then you
Right.
really see the person and who they are. We would do something similar with your, the line talk you're talking about, but like after the
Right.
game, we would always say, give 3 positive things to a teammate, and,
Mm-hmm.
and really just capture and be specific, like you said. And it's really hard for these kids nowadays
Yeah.
to identify that they are doing good. And I wanted to
Right.
touch on that. What is it, for every negative interaction you have to have 10 positive interactions to
Right.
erase that one. So
Yeah.
it's crazy. And now I couldn't even, just to flip it to this today, COVID times. I mean, kids are getting 0 interactions, and they think
Right.
they're getting it through the screen. And it's just like, it hurts me that they're not getting those. These are the big things that I'm talking about, as far as building trust and interaction, and investing in people and what they're about. So
Right.
it's
Yeah, like the
it's
one thing that's been, with COVID is, I mean, like I met a couple people today at tennis. I introduced myself, and I wanted to shake their hand, and he is like, you can't do that right now. It's just,
yeah,
so you're right. I mean, this is a tough time, because I was always someone, when I'd come in to practice, I'd walk around, shake everybody's hand, look them in the eye, and you can still look them in the eye, but now there's no
right.
shaking hands now.
Little
So
elbow.
yeah, elbow,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, so what are the keys of being an effective leader? A lot of people talk about, what it is, but like, what are the actions of an effective leader in your mind?
So you know what, I have a whole presentation, so I'm going to take you through the 7, and I don't know how much time we have, so I'll just give you the 7 if we want to delve into a few, whatever. But the 7 I talk about is clarifying your vision. And in that, I think there's 2 important things: is you're having your individual mission statement, and then developing a team mission statement where you're getting clarity. For example, our basketball team mission statement was to develop winners on and off the court. And it was our job to clarify what it is as a winner on the court and off the court. It wasn't just winning the game. That was only part of it. Okay. Number 2 was building trust, which we just spent quite a bit of time on. Number 3 was creating an edge. And creating an edge was, I think, as a leader, you need to keep growing, so you find different ways that you can create an edge for an organization. I know one of the things that we spend a lot of time is teaching our players how to do goal setting. We used to talk about think it, ink it. We had a team meeting at my house after the team was chosen, where we talked about rules and consequences, our team mission, our team goals, and then I would meet individually with every player to go over their individual goals and how they're going to synchronize with the team goals. I think that's really important. The 4th is, which kind of leads into this, is effective communication. And the most important thing I can tell you on that is something I was not good at early, and I've become much better, is the old adage, you have 2 ears and only 1 mouth, so you should be listening much more than you talk. And I think that's so important as leaders, that we forget about that. The 5th one is pretty self-explanatory, but is something that I think we forget often, and that is to lead by example. And it's like, like I always used to talk about non-negotiables. I mentioned the one that was being on time. Well, I was never late because that was a non-negotiable for me. So if I was someone that was late, that non-negotiable is no longer a non-negotiable because
Right.
I'm not leading by example. Just like I used to kid people like, later in my life, I didn't play basketball with them much anymore like I did when I was younger, but I still would go up in the weight room when we'd work out. In fact, I used to take them through a core workout that was one of my little assets because I wasn't because I did that a lot. I actually would do it better than a lot of my players. So it kind of gave them. And I tell people that, if you have a little strength like that, that shows that you're a good model, use it to your advantage. If you don't, you don't. But, like that was one of the things because I was still pretty fit that I could do. And, they kind of got their attention. So, use whatever strengths you have. The next one is called leaving a profit. And that's our leadership philosophy. And basically, simply is that everything we touched, we wanted to make better, not worse. And again, going back to leading an example, I always give an illustration of when we would go to an opponent's school for a game, when we walk in the locker room, if I saw a piece of garbage on the floor, I would pick it up. And what I was really trying to do is establish that philosophy that everything we touch, we're going to make this locker room look better than when we got there. And, I think those things just add up either in a negative way or a positive way. So I think you got to be very cognizant of what is your leadership philosophy and are you modeling it consistently? And then the last one we have mentioned a little bit about, which is a servant leadership model. And, I think that's really where the essence of leadership is that when you can flip that you're a leader, but flip the pyramid where you're trying to teach the people you work with to become leaders. Because I think when you can develop your team members to become leaders, then you got something really special. And I think too often, it's funny because I'm actually starting a book with I'm going to write a leadership book for young leaders. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and he says, oh, he goes, I think that'd be great. He goes, my son was the captain of the baseball team, and I love the coach, but all he would tell him is be a leader.
Right.
And I
Right.
said, that's too much of what we get. Instead of like, when I I would give my captain specifically, these are my expectations to start you on becoming a leader.
Uh-huh.
And the more that leadership is something you got to learn. It's not something that's natural for most people. So I think that's and the more that you can develop people on your team to be leaders, I think the more effective your team is going to be.
Yeah. No, and everything you're talking about, it's the little things, it's the details, and
Mm-hmm.
to give the analogy of a building a building of a culture, each brick, each little thing that you pick on or pick up or grow, do whatever, grows into the character of that human, and you're teaching the finer essence of life, if you ask me, through sport, which again is the byproduct. And so
Right.
it's just amazing to see those little things that are still overlooked. In my classroom, like, hey, push in your chair. I mean, just the littlest things, or turn off the light when you're done, or just being conscientious of what's going on and what the ripple effect. Oh yeah, it's a light, but think of the light and the energy that you're doing, and so those are just the
Right.
things that you're just trying to teach to the overall essence of being a better person. So
Right on, Mike. I just want to say, I've said this about trust, but I think it is so hugely important that leaders forget that you have to be intentional on building your culture. And that if you don't have really some ideas of how you're going to, on a daily basis, build your culture, it's not going to happen by accident. And we've all seen both ways. We've seen teams that you say they overachieved, and mainly the reason they overachieved is because they were together. Their culture was great. And
yep,
then you see teams that are really talented that, people say underachieve. And I can almost guarantee you it's because their culture was bad.
yep,
And there was no unity there. And we well know that, the definition of synchronicity is the fact that, the sum is greater than or the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And that's, I think, is hugely important.
Agreed. Yeah, I've coached teams that are, sub 500, just no talent, but will
Yeah,
run through a brick wall for me,
right.
and will wanting to learn and grow as much as they can. And then I've been on teams that's like, you should be winning every year, but it's that is the it. If they don't
Yeah,
have that piece of character going into that final game, and that trust and everything that's built up to it, it doesn't matter how much you know. It just doesn't. It doesn't matter how many points you're going to make. It doesn't matter whatever, goals you're going to score, or how many assists you're going to get that game. If you don't have that final character piece of the puzzle to make, like you said, the picture whole. So,
but one other thing I'll just say is that I think it's also really important as, coach, leader, whether you're a business leader, is getting, I mean, you've heard this from Jim Collins' book, Get the Right People on the Bus, but I think it's really important that you have clarity on, what your decision making on what people you are bringing onto your team. Like one of the things I always look for is I wanted someone that was hungry, that wanted to be coached, that wanted to get better. I wanted someone that was humble. I wanted someone that could handle, the good and the bad. So those are qualities that I was really looking for. And I think a major mistake that leaders, and I know I did early in my career, is I was always looking for, the most talented guy. And talent's important in anything, whether it's business, athletics. But if you, we all know, I could give you example in athletics that I was in most of my life, of guys that were really talented, but their teams never won. There was a reason for that,
yeah,
So
agreed. Yeah, and it's the whole circle of life, if you ask me. And I've taught my teams, say thank you to the bus driver when we get off, help out the custodians when we're tearing things down.
yeah,
Say please and thank you to the secretaries in the main office, because those are the people that make the world go round, that don't get enough accolades,
yes,
and those are the people that make schools run, if you ask me.
right.
But
Oh, absolutely. I'm
so
100% with you. Yeah, those are very valid points. I mean, I'll re-emphasize, because you are right on. Just simple things like please and thank you are so powerful, and
yeah,
we neglect those.
yep, yes, agreed. So flipping to, what is the difference of leadership versus mentorship in your mind?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I did do some thinking on that, because I think leadership is the whole thing. Okay, that your leadership is something that we've delved into a lot of different things that you have as a leader. To me, mentorship is zeroing in more specifically on helping you. It not necessarily has to be one, but I always look at, when I mentor people, it's usually a one-on-one situation. And certainly you're helping them with their leadership. But it's really, to me, it's more zeroing in, where leadership, starts with, I think, when you think of a leader, you think of someone that has some type of team that they're running, where mentorship, I think, although you might mentor more than one person, I think it's more directly on working with someone, to help them in some type of life skill. It could be a sport, it could be, it could be just, how to write a book, or I mean, it could go on anything. So,
Mm-hmm.
I think, as you grow as a leader, you usually develop some skills that now you can give back to people, and mentorship is one way you can do that. So that's how I look at it as far as the difference.
Cool. No, I would agree, because I worked with some Boise State student teachers, and being called a mentor was just kind of, I didn't really think of it that way. It was just, and just
Mm-hmm.
trying to show and lead by example, and just kind of doing natural teaching stuff and whatnot. But the leadership part for me, I struggled because it was different.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, if you don't have that game plan, you don't have the philosophy, you don't have your goals and the values set, like those are the foundations and the building blocks for any successful program. And so,
Right.
that's where, as I've learned through my mistakes in leadership. Not saying I'm shying away and I'm done with it, but you know, me when I was mentoring, it was just so natural. And in the leadership, it was just like so much more structured, so much more goes into it, and it not necessarily a 24/7 because boundaries are needed, right?
Right, right.
But you know, I like how it ties in, you know, it's a full circle thing to where the mentoring goes into the leadership and then vice versa, the leadership goes into the mentoring. So
Right.
it's pretty cool. And to me, both of them give back. Both of them are ways of, you know, it's equilateral. And that's where I've always felt with my leadership style. You know, I'm that wolf in the back that's trying to help
Mm-hmm.
motivate and go from the bottom up. I've had a lot of leaders that are from top down, and so it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting to get different perspectives on that and see what
Absolutely.
that is. But
Right.
a couple of last questions. You
Sure.
know, why service to others? I know that's like so like dumb, but if you think about service to others and what you can do to make someone else's day better, I don't think a lot of people, much like we talked about, please and thank you, are doing that. So
Yeah.
why service to others?
Well, to me, that's the essence of life. And I got to say that if you'd asked me that when I was in my 20s, I would have kind of looked at you with two heads because service wasn't that important to me. It was like, you know, how can I get ahead type thing. And I think I've gained some wisdom on that. And I think that, you know, to me now, service is the essence of life. And, you know, really, I think it's twofold. I think when you serve and help people, it certainly helps them, but it also makes you feel good. And, you know, we all have our internal motivations, and, you know, and I'll tell you, some of my greatest experiences have been when I've done something positive for, you know, someone else or a team. And it's like, wow, this is so rewarding to be able to help somebody do something really good in their life. To me, that's really what essence is of what life is to me all about now. And I think the sooner you learn, um, you know, I paraphrase Martin Luther King Jr. is one of my all-time favorite Americans, and studying him, and he had a, you know, I'm paraphrasing a quote, but basically said, "We all can be great because service leads to greatness, and we're all capable of serving." I was like, wow, that's pretty powerful. You know, and to me, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And like you said, with when you're helping somebody, you know, the ripple effect, it just not, it's not direct, it's so indirect. And
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And um you're right. Like, oh, I helped, you know, I had an autistic kid who was a wrestler, and you
Mm-hmm.
know, his mom was just ecstatic that he even got onto the mat, and he, you know, and so those are just the things I was so fixated on the kid, but I never took until like the last match, like to see mom and dad like just tearing up and feeling
Yeah.
that their son can do this. And those are the beautiful moments of life that really, you know, shine to and through. So
Absolutely.
um so lastly, as you talked a little bit about leaving it for a profit,
Mm-hmm.
what do you hope to leave behind as coach, you know, Jim Johnson?
Well, you know, it's something as you go through life, because, you know, as I've gotten older now, you hear things like, you know, can you leave a legacy? And the main thing that I really, as I've, you know, I've done a lot more reflection since I retired, and now, you know, I'm doing a second career as a speaker, and I'm going to try to write another book. And, but really, I think the huge thing is, um, can I continue to grow myself and grow and help others? And if I can consistently do that, um, then I think I can leave a legacy of an impact of making a difference in the world. You know, and whether it's a small way, you know, some people make huge, you know, significant, but I think we all, if we use the mindset of, you know, how can I get a little bit better so I can help people become a little bit better and make the world a little bit better. And then I just a thing, because what I'm really struggling right now, and, you know, especially in our country, is the strife and the division. And I think one thing, as simple as it sounds, is we just got to go back to a basic of let's be kind to each other, and respect each other. We're not going to always agree on everything, but right now, my biggest disappointment is that we're just seeing so many people, in my opinion, that are being cruel and disrespectful. And you know what? We can't unite anything if we're not treating people with respect and just thinking of, how can I be kind to people?
Hmm.
And that's been my disappointment right now. And that's something we got to go back to those basic fundamentals. And if we don't, we're going to, we got to learn how to disagree respectfully. And that right now I don't see, and it's disappointing to me. So
Yeah, no, amen to that, brother. I mean, it is so disheartening to see how divided, and it's really a shame. Like, I've having a conversation with my neighbors and just said, I don't know if America is the greatest country in the world anymore.
yeah,
And so we used to make a lot of great things. We used to, help cure diseases. We used to, defend other helpless countries. And so now we just look like a bunch of ignorant a-holes that
right,
have no idea what we're doing and what we stand for. And
right,
so and I think the ultimate thing is like the biggest slap in the face of our military, because they go out and do the ultimate sacrifice for us,
absolutely, yeah,
and then they come home to this. It's like, but anywho, no, I totally agree. If you could change 1 degree your compass to making your life impactful and better for another person, again, it's a greater, straight point for everybody. And so
absolutely,
that kind of, to capture what you're talking about, just getting everybody back on the same page and everybody respecting, and you don't, like you said, you don't have to agree, but you can be civil about it. You can,
right,
and the thing is, and I'm pretty sure you probably have had heated discussions with people about this, but to actually, like you said, shut the one mouth, open to 2 ears, and really pay attention. I mean, it's
yeah,
the art of listening, and this is what I love this podcast, is just that art of conversation has gone to the wayside, and
right,
we need to revamp that. We need to go back to those, like you said, the core basics of being a human, and
yeah,
really invest your time in being present with that person and understanding what they're about. So
right, right.
um
Yeah,
so
I mean, I don't want to go huge topic, but your words are powerful. But like one of the things that, and I've gotten caught up with this, so I'm not saying, but it's one of the things I see too much with the younger generation is all about your phone.
yeah.
Um, and of course, this pandemic has made things worse because now we don't even have the contact. But to me, that's what the ultimate is when you can have a nice conversation, learn from each other, talk to each other, and listen to each other is so powerful. And I've always kidded, like a few years ago, I was at my brother's house for his daughter's high school graduation, and there were 5 girls in a room, and it was a pretty small room. And I'm walking by with my wife, we were going home, and I peeked in to say goodbye to my niece, and there's 5 girls in there, and not one of them are talking to each other, all on the phones, and they could be texting each other for all
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, yep,
But it was comical, but
yeah,
sad in the same response.
yeah.
So
No, I've seen that. My son will have have his buddies come over, his soccer buddies, and they'll have a sleepover or whatever, but they'll play video games in the same room and outside of the same room, but they're playing the same game in different rooms. And I'm like, I don't understand any of that. I mean, it's
yes,
so foreign. Like, I just go outside and climb a tree and fall down and break your arm. That's what we used to do back in the day, but nobody wants to do that anymore. So,
right, right.
but, well, excellent, Coach. It has been such an honor to meet up with you and catch up with you,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
understand a little bit more. And I definitely appreciate, you taking us through the steps of helping us, create that personal mission statement. Those team building activities. I'm going to try the line one tomorrow. So thank you
Yeah,
for that.
my pleasure.
The effective leader, which I think goes back to what we were just talking about. We all need to be leaders in this. It's just not one person anymore. It's a team effort. So And then
Absolutely.
obviously the biggest thing, the service to others. I mean, that's what I'm hoping people get from this podcast, that I can help somehow, some way through a pandemic, give them some motivation, give them some inspiration, definitely some perseverance and some resources. I started this based on the suicidal, national hotline, and just to have suicide prevention, not only for veterans, but students, teachers, people, and just make everything aware. And I think a lot of what you're talking about too is a lot of stuff that people don't want to talk about.
Right.
We need to talk about it because it's
Yeah.
it can no longer be ignored. So, um,
Mike, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to share some ideas with you, and I look to continue to grow our relationship. And I'm certainly hoping, that I believe we'll get through this pandemic, and someday we'll actually get a chance to meet in person and actually either give a handshake or a hug. That would be pretty neat. So,
I would so love that, my friend. I'd love to connect up. I'd love to see you in action as a keynote speaker, and
yeah,
we'll make it happen. That'll be a bucket list for me, for sure. So,
okay.
but yes, thank you so much for being on the Running Educator podcast. So,
Well, thanks. It was my pleasure. So keep
cool.
up your good work and keep me posted on how things are going and how I can best help you. So,
Yeah, no, yeah, definitely I will. Like I said, I'll send you the audio of this and the
okay.
video, and like I said, I'm just gonna kind of work through it and dice it up and make it go, I truly, it's amazing to connect up with you. Thank you so much, and
My
I'll
pleasure.
definitely be. I won't try to text you 12 times a day, but I'll definitely get at you whenever I can, so to see how you're
No,
doing
please
and
do.
whatnot.
I love saying, keeping in touch with people. And it's something I think we got to, as I said, we got to do more of that we forget. Like there's some days I'll sit downstairs and go, you know what? I just got to reach out and text a few people just to see how they're doing. It's
Yep,
like,
yep.
it's
It's crazy.
I will say the pandemic, it's been tough on everybody. One real positive for me is I was, I've always been an exercise person, but I was not really a walker. And I've, since the pandemic for the last 6 months, I've taken a walk every day and I listen to a podcast, and it's been hugely nice for me. It's just to get outside in the fresh air,
Yeah.
Which is something you're used to, but, and it's been a different world, this last six
Yeah.
months.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. I either put on an audiobook or I try to, just listen to a podcast
Right.
and just, try to get away. But you're right, just getting that vitamin D and just
Yeah.
feeling the earth, and it's great. But
Right. So
so
now this is your son is playing soccer?
yeah, he's out there. He's got practice right now, so he's
Okay.
3 days a week, and he's got games on Saturdays, and so it's just
Okay.
like just crazy. But
Now how old is he?
he is 12.
12. Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, and
And
then
is he
my
into
daughter,
soccer? Does he like it?
yeah, this is his fourth year of competitive
Okay.
soccer, so
Okay. Good for him.
he's enjoying it. He's just as long as he's doing something active, that's the only thing
Right.
that my wife
Absolutely.
and I definitely want. Like our daughter, she's 15, going on 16 in November. Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, and so she's a competitive dancer, so she's been doing a lot of the
Okay.
ballet and all that
Right.
stuff.
Right.
So it's been crazy, but we love it. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, enjoy every day because it goes fast. We just had the one son, and it's crazy. I mean, he's 30 years old now. It's scary to think that, and you value because he lives in the West Coast. So and right now we haven't seen him in almost a year, so it's been kind of tricky from that perspective. But all right,
excellent.
well, Mike, again, it was great to talk, and keep me posted, and we'll definitely keep growing here. So.
Yeah, I definitely. I'd like to do a follow up if anything, and if you could maybe send me some resources on your book, maybe I could
Okay.
promote it a little bit during that and make a little snippet of it, and just I don't want to give too much, but I want to definitely push people in the right direction to getting it. So
Yeah, as
um,
we have an outline right now. I definitely, as we get where we have some real guidelines as far as when we are going to. I'm guessing we're going to get the book out in 2021, but we haven't. We're still in those. We've done some work, but so I definitely will keep you heads up when we do it. So
Yeah, and even in the book that you've previously had out too, that would be a good resource. I can put that out there as well. So
yeah. So
I'll put that in there and go from there.
it's on my
So
website, A Coach in a Miracle, and
okay,
so, yeah. So
I'll put that in there. So all those resources will be in the description, and I'll make a little Google of it, and it'll be on my blog. And I'm gonna probably jump on Instagram and do some promotion on that. So
okay, sounds like a
Coach,
plan.
it's
All
good to
right,
see you,
Mike.
man.
Yeah, good to see you. Have a good night.
You
Take
too.
care, buddy.
See you,
I'll
buddy.
see you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.